Hello, everyone. It's 12 o'clock exactly Moscow time, and we are starting the webinar. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm really glad to see so many people. I'm really humbled, and I hope it's going to live up to your expectations. So we have an hour and a half, or probably maximum 2 hours ahead of us, which is packed with a lot of information. So, to start with, in the olden days, teacher's path might be like that, like two ways: a state educational organization or probably a private school when private schools started to exist. And the most obvious choice was a degree in pedagogy or a degree in linguistics. And university lecturing or school teaching. So that would be the two options. But if you look at the situation now, the situation looks more like that. There are so many paths, there are so many ways to go, and it's chaotic, but you can basically have a degree in pedagogy, languages, international relationships, translation, philology, intercultural communication. Then you may think where to start your career. Will it be a private school or just ordinary school? Become a freelancer? What qualifications to choose, what certificates to get, and which conferences to visit, how to invest in your CPD wisely, how to do it on a low budget. And the questions are really numerous. And that's why you are here today. And that's why I'm going to try to provide you with enough information to make right decisions for you. And these are the goals of the webinar today. So I planned to give you a balanced overview of the industry and its teaching and language qualifications. And I highlighted the word balanced because I'm intending to show you the pluses and minuses, the benefits and the drawbacks. Then we're going to talk about an idea of a niche and how you may find one, how you may carve your niche. We're going to talk about some very, very basics of marketing to make some returns on your CPD, because that's what you asked as well in your questionnaires. And by the way, thank you very much for filling in the questionnaire. That was really, really useful for me. It was a lot of valuable information there. And ideas to promote yourself as a non-native speaker. Okay, so just one more remark here. So we control the sound and we control the video. So I make sure that the recording is fine. You may have some difficulties with your connection. So the connection might be too slow. You may not see me or hear me right well. But it's some local problems and the recording will be fine. So the other thing is that I won't read your questions as I go because it's going to take too much time. I have a moderator, Irina Shebeka, who's going to monitor your questions. And after that, at the end, we're going to have a slot where I'm going to address your questions for sure. So don't worry, it's going to be there and it's going to be fine. And one more sign of warning here that I want to give. Usually when I speak at a conference, I only insert like 3 or maybe 5 main ideas into something like 30-minute presentation. And it's understandable because people who come to conferences, they're already overloaded with the information. But here, this webinar going to be longer, much longer, and it's going to be packed with information. So I'm going to provide you with a lot of things. And I expect you to return to either the recording of the webinar or to the slides, because it may be hard for you to grasp everything I'm going to talk about from the first listening, from the first attempt. So just bear with that, just be aware of that it's going to be really a lot of information and you may have a lot of questions. So just give it a bit more time. Now it's time to let's go. This is my personal take on English, on an English teacher, what an English teacher profession is comprised of. And I believe that 40% of this is qualifications and expertise. Another 40% is the language. So this is your instrument, so how well you play your instrument. The other 20% that are left are divided between charisma, which is a very unclear thing. Who has charisma? What is it, charisma? Yeah, how to gain charisma? Is it possible to gain charisma? I don't know. I will not address these questions. And experience. This is something that you may like raise your eyebrows and say, like, what? Is experience not that important? My idea is that an experienced teacher is, of course, someone who can have a lot of respect from their colleagues and from the students. But experience in years doesn't mean that a teacher improves from year to year. We can easily find examples of teachers who do basically the same thing for the last, I don't know, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. So their lessons now will not be different from their lessons in 5 years' time. And that's why experience alone is not that crucial. But your qualification expertise and your language do matter. And this is what we're going to talk today most of the time. Right, so we're going to start with the first roadmap. We're going to start with teacher qualifications and expertise. And I want to start with a quote here. Like, every certificate, training, or webinar is a brick in your own building of professional excellence. But you need to have a master plan first. So you build your house, you build your building of professional excellence. But if you don't have a master plan first, how can you build a beautiful building? It can be quite hard. So your building might be skewed in this or that way. It can be not very coherent. So this won't tell a coherent story. And that's why we're going to talk about the master plan first. And here is our first roadmap. First, we're going to talk about Cambridge teaching qualifications, Delta, CELTA, TKT, quite briefly, each of these qualifications. Then we're going to talk about how to carve your niche and invest wisely. We're going to talk about basics of marketing, how to make some returns on your investments. Native or non-native, how to tackle native speakerism, monitoring and peer assessment, and low budget CPD. So this is going to be our first roadmap. Our second roadmap will be about language. So Cambridge English. Why Cambridge English? Well, because Cambridge English qualifications, language exams, and teacher qualifications are probably the most reputable and well recognized and famous in the world. There are some other institutions, of course, who also provide us with some similar level qualifications, but there are not so many of them, and let's face it, they are not so really widely known. So Cambridge is a certain benchmark, both for teacher qualifications and for language exams, and that's why we take it as our starting point and see what Cambridge has to offer. Has any one of you seen this scale before? Add some pluses. Have you seen this map of teacher qualifications? Yeah, some of you. Thank you. And you see that the scale is divided into 4 steps: foundation, developing, proficient, and expert. And below, you see qualifications that roughly correspond to each of these levels. And some of you may be surprised to see that TKT is a bit further than CELTA. And that is why I heard a rumor, on some teaching forums, they all, sometimes I see this. Oh, by the way, that TKT is better than CELTA. In fact, it's not that straightforward. It's not that simple. The reason why TKT is a bit further from CELTA, because if you look at all 5 TKT qualifications, there are 3 core modules, and there is a young learner module and a CLIL module. They all in total cover more ground than just CELTA. Because CELTA is an entry qualification, but we're going to talk about specific features of CELTA just in a couple of moments. But it only targets teaching adults and teaching groups. So that's why if you look at the syllabus of CELTA, it's going to be a bit smaller than all the modules of TKT, but they are very, very different qualifications. Then CELT P and CELT S, they are not so popular in Russia. Now I know only one institution who provides trainees with this qualifications. They are mostly targeting school teachers. To be honest, I don't know much about them, but they are also sort of in service training. ICELT has been sadly discontinued, so it doesn't exist anymore. So ICELT used to be something in between CELTA and Delta, and it also had 3 modules. It was a very intensive course, but it doesn't exist now. And then we have Delta, the second most famous after CELTA training for qualifications. So this is already towards like a proficient to expert, an advanced level teaching qualification. And we have the AMI skills. This is for university teachers, English as medium of instruction, and train the trainer. Well, this is also a quite short course for those who want to become teacher trainers. Right, so we're going to start from the top. I'm going to go from Delta to TKT, and I'm going to show you the main features of these qualifications and their pluses and minuses. So Delta, I call it humorously, the sky is the limit, also known as blood, sweat, and tears. Everyone who does Delta, particularly the second module, can confirm that it's really blood, sweat, and tears. So it has 3 modules. They can be taken at any time in any order. You get a separate certificate for each module. It can be done online, blended, face-to-face. Module 1 is a written exam, so you can theoretically prepare on your own, or you can take a course. Module 2 is a practical one, so this is where you teach groups, and when your tutor assesses you, and you also have a so-called external, when somebody who you don't know comes to your final lesson. And this is the first time you see this person in your life, and they look at your lesson and they give you their judgment, and you either pass the course or you fail the course. So this is like the most nerve-wracking experience in my teaching career. And module 3 is about course development and specialization. And this is, you develop a particular course for a particular group of students. And this is, of course, for experienced teachers. And the usual entry requirement is about 2 years post-CELTA and at least 600 teaching hours. Why do people take Delta? Well, to take the roles of an academic director, a teacher trainer, or expert teacher. What can these people do? They understand and can apply the key principles of syllabus design and course planning. So this addresses module 3. They raise their language awareness, so they know a lot about language and how language works. They understand language acquisition and systems and skills, and understand methodology, approaches, and methods. Quite a lot of things. What are the benefits of Delta? This is again my personal experience, my pre-Delta situation, my post-Delta situation. You start to understand how to help your learners to achieve their goals in the best possible way from a lesson to a course. You understand why you do things in classroom and how they are related to their learning goals. You become confident in most of teaching situations. And well, it's a nice top, the top on the top of that. You're one of the most qualified teachers in the world, which is nice to think of yourself. The downsides, you see, they're pretty concise. It's expensive, exhausting. It's long, really long, painful. It is really painful. It's sometimes vague because you need to understand what they want from you. What exactly do you need to demonstrate? It can be really hard sometimes. Sometimes unrealistic. What I mean is that there are a lot of criteria you need to meet. And sometimes, well, I've been in a situation where I couldn't meet all the criteria, yeah, because the lesson design didn't allow for that. And it was very, very painful, you know. That was the difference between a distinction for a lesson or a merit for a lesson. So you can't pack it all in one lesson. And there are things that I call it, you need to tick the boxes. Yeah. So you need to have particular elements in your Delta lesson to match particular criteria. So this is a standardized qualification, and CELTA and all the this type of qualifications, they are standardized. So they need to have the same criteria for everyone. By the way, those of you who are interested in Delta, I had 3 webinars this last March, last year, with SkyTeach. And each of the webinars was dedicated to each module of Delta. And there I took it in a lot more detail. I talked about how to prepare to module 1, what do you need to do in module 2 and in module 3. So I still have the recordings, yeah, and I think I'm gonna, sometime I'm gonna also make them available so you can purchase them at some decent price. So I mean that there are some more information about Delta if you're interested in it. Now we're moving on to CELTA. Teaching at an international standard. This is this marketing heading, and also known as survive a month without turning grey. Again, if you've taken CELTA or if you've heard of people taking CELTA, you've probably heard of this, like, oh, that was the craziest month in my life. I had some gray hair when this month was over and it was all terrible. It was so stressful. Yeah, it's notorious. We hear these stories about CELTA being crazy intensive and so on. What are the benefits of CELTA? I'd say that it breaks you down and builds you up as a teacher, no matter what background or experience. I mentioned experience at the beginning. So even though you're a very experienced teacher, it might be still very useful to do it. It can be done either 4 weeks full-time or 3 months part-time. Now I hear about online CELTA, but I don't know much about it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit skeptical about it because CELTA is a very, face-to-face experience. You have a group of students, you have your peer trainees, you have your tutors. Yeah, so you need this intensive contact with people. And even though I believe that Delta can be done online, it's very different. I believe that CELTA is better done face to face and intensive. And it's about essential knowledge of principles of effective English teaching. So this is about communicative methodology. What I believe is the best thing about CELTA, and why I usually encourage people to do that, is because you get some expert training and feedback on your teaching. In CELTA, you teach 8 lessons In Delta, by the way, you teach 6 lessons and only 4 of them are assessed. So in CELTA, you teach the double. In 1 month, you teach 8 lessons. And no other qualification gives you that much feedback from an experienced trainer than CELTA. So you really improve from lesson to lesson. And well, why is it so expensive? Well, because you have so much of this individual feedback from tutors. CELTA is also the most wanted teacher qualification in the world. It's recognized worldwide. Yeah, so this is like wherever you apply, 99% they're going to ask for CELTA first. Range of practical skills for teaching adults and practical ability to apply your learning in a real teaching context. You ask about TESOL. I didn't announce anything about TESOL. I don't know firsthand experience from TESOL, so that's why it's not part of this webinar. So I think that you can find some information out there. You can ask alumni of TESOL. So then you probably can learn more about it. I can't talk about something I don't have, I don't know, and I don't have a personal experience with. The positive sides and the negative sides of CELTA. The positive thing is that it can be done locally. Moscow, St. Petersburg, Rostov-on-Don, Kiev, Minsk. So at least these cities you can take CELTA in. And I believe that it's much better than doing it abroad. I'm going to address it in a moment. As I mentioned, so CELTA is a very much face-to-face experience, and it can be a fantastic group dynamic, fantastic learning process, teaching experience. I had a lot of fun during my CELTA. I mean, it probably was the most hilarious month in my life. We laughed out loud. We had a fantastic group, fantastic tutors, and even though it was very, very hard and challenging, it was a lot of fun too. And one of the best things about CELTA is that your teaching improves from lesson to lesson. You really see your progress, and you see your progress from week to week. This is something really special about CELTA. The downsides: expensive. Yeah, for Russia, it is expensive. You have to save money, and probably you need to save money for a year or 2 or 3 to have this qualification. It's exhausting. So if you plan doing CELTA, don't plan anything else during this month. Seriously. When people say that, they mean it. Yeah, don't plan anything else. If you work for some state schools, there are usually no incentives. So your pay will not be raised. Well, I mean, it's very much depends on the organization, but it's notoriously known that if you work for some governmental institution, they are a bit suspicious about it. But this is bureaucracy, right? And again, this is for teaching adults. Well, teens as well, but those like late teens, yeah. And it's mostly about teaching groups. Actually, when I did CELTA, I taught one-to-one at that time, and it was still very, very helpful for me in my one-to-one lessons. But it's a lot about group work, peer work, group dynamics, and these things. Some frequently asked questions and urban legends. So I'm a qualified teacher, I have 20 years of experience. Should I take CELTA? My answer is yes. If you studied in post-Soviet countries, you had nothing like CELTA experience, so it may be worth it, again, because of the feedback that you gain. Can I jump to Delta without having CELTA? The usual answer is possibly, but I personally would not recommend it. You need to check the center requirements where you want to apply for your Delta. But Delta can put you under such pressure that I would say, you better learn to swim before you cross the ocean. So this is my personal advice to you. And bear in mind also that Delta Module 1 also has the highest fail rate among Cambridge exams. This is statistics. People overestimate themselves when they take Module 1. Is it better to take CELTA abroad? This is also a very frequent question. My answer is no, unless you plan to immigrate to that country. Because if you work in a post-Soviet countries, you will benefit from learning to teach in your context with students who share the same language, first language as you. So if you're Russian, you teach Russians, you can understand a lot about what's happening with your students because you share the same first language. And also, it's going to save you enormous amount of money. Yeah. So if you go to do CELTA, I don't know, somewhere abroad, it's going to be the double or the triple as much as you're going to spend in Russia. Now, TKT finally. Yeah. So this is a great start for your CPD. It can be done module by module. Yeah. So they have 3 modules, core modules and CLIL and young learners. And you can do each module. So just take 1, then take 2, and then take 3, and so on. You familiarize yourself with communicative language teaching and the theory of CELTA, which is basically the same. Yes, so TKT core modules is the theory that you're going to practice in CELTA. You can prepare on your own, but I recommend to take a course because those of you who took TKT, you know that it's usually quite easy to prepare on your own. You can take some books and you can do some tests, and usually you're going to pass with, I don't know, band 4, band 3, or whatever. But if you take a course, you process it on a deeper level. You analyze more, you think more, you may have a better bridge to practice. Because usually when you read a course book or 2 and then take the exam, it says not much about what you can actually do in your lessons. But if you take a good course, so it can help you. Ticket is a nice addition to your CV or portfolio, and it's affordable. Comparing to CELTA and Delta, it's just like incomparably more affordable. No teaching practice, that's the biggest downside. No feedback on your teaching practice. Not as prestigious as CELTA, of course. And I'd say that TKT is more about, learning the buttons in the cockpit. You imagine an airplane, yeah, and there's a cockpit where pilots are sitting. It's just like learning the buttons in the cockpit, but CELTA is more like being able to fly a plane. Yeah, so this is the gap between theory and practice. Right, so we've covered Cambridge English, and we move on to carving your niche and investing wisely. Here I want to start with a quote by a person I respect dearly, Marek Kichkovac. He organized a website called TEFL Equity Advocates. You're going to have all the links at the end of the webinar, and I'm going to refer to Marek a couple of times. He's a Polish teacher, a very proficient teacher, who was sick and tired of native speakerism and who organized this campaign for equal opportunities for non-native speakers and native speakers. And I took some quotes from him. And he says here, by trying to be everything to everyone, you'll end up being nothing to no one. I need a pause for you to ponder on that. Yeah, try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to no one. Now, my example. Think of doctors, a general practitioner and immunologist. 2 doctors, both qualified, but who do you think has a better chance of having stable stream of clients and a higher income? Surely you know the answer, but also try to think why. Why an immunologist can have a better a stable stream of clients and a higher income. You may write something down, but I'm going to just move on. Yeah, so it's of course it's about the specialization. So my mantra is carve your niche. You may ask yourself, who am I as a teacher? what context levels, ages do I teach now? Who do I want to teach in 5 years' time? You need to narrow down this specialization and think that only novice, or let's face it, badly qualified teachers teach everyone and everywhere. And if you look at the established teachers or teacher trainers, I'm going to show you some specific examples in a couple of moments. They all have their specialization. They don't teach every level, every age, and every exam. When you answer the question above, yeah, so who am I as a teacher, what context I teach, and so on, think what you need to add to your portfolio, search for it, sign up for the course and the training, and go for it. And if something doesn't fit into your CPD, just avoid it. So this idea we're going to take now step by step and see some more examples, more ideas behind them. And I hope that by the end of this section, you're going to have an idea of what could it be for you. So this is the concept. Yeah. So you have your expertise. So what do you have as a teacher? What sort of training, what sort of education you have, and so on. You also have your passion, things that you love to do, things that you're interested in teaching. And we also have marketing demand. And if these things overlap, you have your niche. But most of all, it's about your expertise matching the market demand. So this is where your niche happens. Your passion might maybe not that important at this stage, yeah, for at least for being successful as a teacher. But if we talk about job satisfaction, if we talk about things you love, the happiness spot is right in the middle where all three things overlap. So when you have a passion for a specific thing or a specific area of teaching, you have a necessary expertise for that, and there is a demand on the market. You may ask, how can I know the market demand? And this is a right question, because we don't have money to order some market research and to learn what people want from teachers, what sort of things are in demand. It's hard. Big companies have this money. We freelancers, individuals, we don't have. But you can learn it by trial and error. So you can test one hypothesis and see if there is demand for that. You can test another hypothesis and see if there is demand. It's a hard work, but sorry, I can't give you easy solutions. Now, I promised you some examples of ALT specialists and their niches. I just thought about people I know, people I respect, and I thought about their niche. And this is the list I came up with. So Helena Pirisada, who organizes Trendy English, gamification. Anita Modestova and Marina Kladova. So they are a lot about teacherpreneurs, being a freelancer, business, even though Anita now moves a lot to teaching lexically and teacher training as well. Andrei Mishin, Evgenia Kaktorova, we know them thanks to YGE. They're also very reputable teachers. Alexei Kanabev does a lot about YGE and Olympiads, particularly All Russian Olympiad. Oля Sergeyeva is all about listening decoding. She's one of the best experts in the field, I'd say. Natalia Bilausova teaches teens. She knows a lot about Fagos and how to put Fagos into normal practice, how to marry these two worlds that hardly collide. And Natasha is also a great teacher trainer. Elena Sarnowska is about teaching teens and VR, the virtual reality, all these, glasses and, applying technologies. Pyotr Stepichev is a nice example of someone who came up with their own, I wouldn't say probably methodology. I don't know much about that, but he calls it surprise pedagogy. So he has some tools, he has some particular ways of presenting these things. So he has his very particular niche. These are good examples, yeah, so successful examples. And these are some bad examples of a niche. And the things I put here on the list, I just want to give another warning sign. Yeah, I don't mean that teachers who do that are bad or something. Yeah, but in terms of the niche and the carving their niche, they may lose income and reputation. So when you say teaching adults, teaching kids, teaching all levels, teaching one-to-one, yeah, again, one-to-one is a way of delivery of your course, yeah, but it's not something unique. It's not a niche. It's just a tool helping with school program. Now I want to think with you together, yeah, so you're listening carefully. I don't address you that much, but try to think, how can we turn one of these things into a niche? So I'm gonna speculate with some examples now, yeah? So for example, I'm gonna take a cup. Teaching one-to-one is a method of delivery, and you can solve particular problems of your students by teaching one-to-one. What could it be? For example, you have a category of students who learn the language but can't speak. They can't speak at all. They may read or understand something on a basic level. Yeah, teaching particular exams. Thank you, Katerina. But people can't speak. And if you take their problem and you teach them one-to-one, you're going to help them to become more fluent and to uh, gather their thoughts and put them into language. So this can be a particular niche. Teaching kids for young learners exams, very good. Thank you, Tatiana. Yeah, English for tourism, excellent. Yeah, so we all know that people come to us and say, I want to learn the language for myself. Yeah, it's not specific. What do you mean for yourself? You may talk to these people and ask, what are the things that you particularly want to do in the language? Yeah, so what sort of situations you want to be confident in, and so on. And very, very often people just want to travel and be confident in travel. Yeah, people, some international competitions, preparing for Cambridge exams. Yeah, so specific purposes. Yeah, all of these things. Exactly. So you're thinking in the right direction. Thank you very much for that. Here are some my ideas of niche, and some of you already mentioned ESP, EAP, English for specific purposes. It can be, I don't know, for medicine, for pilots, for some particular professions. AP is academic English, so English for university studies. Teaching dyslexia or teaching children with some learning difficulties is a very, very hard work, but it's also very wanted. So if you are good at solving these problems, I'm sure you're going to be just like an immunologist, a couple of good immunologists from a couple of million city, yeah. And yeah, teaching young learners, some of you mentioned that, preparing them for young learners exams, teaching very young learners, so preschoolers. Early bilingual development is a big topic now, yeah? And teaching for specific exams, IELTS, Cambridge, Mansfield, and also American exams, SAT, GMAT, GRE, TOEFL. I personally know almost nothing about these exams. I never taught for them, and I don't even attempt. But I know that people who want to take these exams are usually successful high flyers, either academics or businessmen, who want to take an MBA, for example, in English, which is a very expensive thing. And they need GMAT, for example, for that. Or some people who want to go to American universities, they need SAT or GRE. If you can meet this demand, you can earn a lot, really. YGE, of course, now with all the changes that they're either becoming obligatory or compulsory, or they are not becoming compulsory. I mean, I don't follow that now, but it's changing and there is a demand. Give me some advice on something early bilingual development. No, I can't give you because I'm not an expert in that. There are people who know more about early bilingual development than I do. Then full of false beginners. Yeah, so I mentioned this, like one-to-one people who can't speak, or language for tourism, yeah, language for traveling. Particular valid teaching method. Yeah, I mentioned Peter Tepichev earlier. Yeah, so he came up with some things and some methodology, and he's successful in that. And why I say valid? Well, because you know that there is so much crap online on the unique method of whatever, learning 1,000 words in 1 hour, and all these things. Yeah, so I don't think that this is something valid, but if you have some approach, it can be very interesting. I'm finally, to finish off this section, I'm going to give you 2 examples of how you can restructure your current situation to your niche that you want to be in. I teach teens, but I want to prepare for YGE. What do you need to do? First step is language, in my opinion, again. So you need to pass FCE at least. Then you need to go to FIPI and study their materials. It's all there. They have annual reports, they have exam papers. You need to study them carefully. You don't have to think that there is some secret knowledge that is only available to, I don't know, examiners, let's say. And if you're not an examiner, you don't know nothing. It's a crap. No, you just go, you study meticulously FIPI materials, and it's all there. If you have the patience for studying it, so you're gonna know all the nuances and all the details of this exam. You can search for free webinars and of YGE experts. There are, again, a lot of them. I mentioned Andrei Mishin and Evgenia Kapturova, people I totally respect. They have a lot of free webinar, not free webinars, whatever. Yeah, watch them, think carefully, and think critically. Yeah, if you choose someone to watch, so think, does this person has enough expertise to teach you about YGE? Is there some evidence that they know the stuff, or they're just fantasizing things? Be critical. Then you can take a course or 2 of YGE experts or teachers. Again, choose a course specifically. Yeah, there are a lot of courses now, online, offline, whatever. Think about why you need this particular course, what sort of skills you may gain if you do this course, and how can it help you to teach better. If you're not sure, ask the trainers questions like, will it help me to do this and that? And if it's a good trainer, they're going to be honest. Yeah, the not good trainers will say, oh yes, of course, this, we're going to cover everything. Again, be critical if you get an answer like that. No single course can cover everything. There's still going to be some things. You see, in this webinar, I also said I can't tell you anything about TESOL because I don't know. It was not in the description, so how can I tell you about things that I don't know? I recommend you to pass YGE yourself, to put yourself into the shoes of your students' shoes. I did that, by the way, one day some years ago. It was fun. And update your knowledge regularly. Yeah, make sure you are in the know about latest changes. Yeah, all the exams are constantly changing. Every year there's new things that are coming up. You need to follow all these things. Example number 2. I'm tired of teaching teens, kids, and lower levels. I want to teach adults and higher levels. This is what I really often hear from my trainees, so people who are in CA and CPE courses that I teach. This is a very, very popular request. Again, Start with language. Yeah? So pass FCC at least. Then think again, what exactly do you want to teach? General English, business English, English for specific purposes? Try things out unless you understand what you like most and what's the most lucrative thing. Are there enough clients to find? You can optionally take some specific exam. Yeah, so if you teach for business English, it would be good to take back. You can also think about some intensive course to improve your teaching techniques with a renowned trainer, yeah, or a free online course, or you can like go into a couple of days training, a week's training on some specific things. If you want to teach adults and if you want to be good at that, you may think about taking CELTA or TKT, and also browse YouTube for webinars, seminars of renowned teachers in your area, and update your language, your knowledge regularly. At the end of this presentation, there's going to be like 6 pages of links that I systematize and find from you on a lot of different areas. Yeah, so I collected a lot of things for you that you can use later when you're going to start your search. Right. Again, one more quote from Marek. It is fundamental that you have a deep understanding of who your client, ideal client is, and what their main problems are, so that you can offer an effective solution to these. All right. Now, return on your investment. So you invested a lot of money into your training. What to do next? How it's going to influence your income. And this, we're going to touch the basics of marketing. I say basics because it's a huge topic. I'm probably going to do a webinar about how to market yourself later, because there's a lot of things to pack in, and I'm just pack the very, very basic things. Basic thing number 1, it is your responsibility to be clear, concise, and persuasive with your clients about your expertise, experience, and your pricing policy. Why this? Again, very often when I interview my candidates for my course, I hear the following. Well, you live in a big city. You live in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and there people know about CAE, about CPE, they know about CELTA, and it's easy to advertise yourself if you have CELTA, Delta, and CPE. The reality is that nobody gives a hoot about your CELTA, Delta. If you're not in the teaching context, you will never know all these acronyms. They won't tell you anything. Yeah. So back to my thought again, it is your responsibility to explain what it is and why is it so cool that you have a CELTA, Delta, whatever. So you can start with collecting your courses, certificates, qualifications in one place. Let's call it CV, portfolio, or social networking profile. Take a look at all these things and ask yourself, do they tell a coherent story? Is there a story at all? Or it's like something very chaotic? Think about the benefits to your clients that this list has. What clients' problems can you solve with the help of your portfolio? And can you put it into simple and clear language? Nobody said it's easy. It's hard work to think about your clients, to put yourself in your clients' shoes, and to think about the problems that your clients may solve with your qualifications that you have. But this is the only way to present yourself properly and wisely and intelligently, let's say. An example, I have a CELTA. What does it mean to my clients? So this is what I was thinking of, and this is how I would present my CELTA to my potential clients. So CELTA means that I can teach English using a modern and valid teaching method, the communicative approach. What does it mean? It means learning a language in a situation of communication. We speak, write, read, and listen in the lesson. We don't just learn the rules by heart. We don't translate texts. No, not these old school things. We speak, write, and read in the lesson. Thing number 2. I know the key methodological principles and can apply them to individual students and groups. Because this is what CELT is about. You teach, and you teach your lesson, and you're assessed on the effectiveness of your lesson. Thing number 3, my ability to plan and conduct lessons effectively was proved by highly experienced and Cambridge-approved tutors. This is why it's so expensive. This is what you paid for. I own a qualification that is recognized around the world, worldwide. Most of the teaching jobs worldwide require CELTA. Look, I have CELTA. It means that I can teach English anywhere in the world. Isn't it cool? My qualification is issued by a world-renowned authority in English language teaching, Cambridge University. So there are 5 things that you have, and these are your strengths to explain to your clients how their needs going to be met with your qualification. I'm really sorry, I can't read what you write now. I'm going to read it later, but if you have a particular question, you can ask it at the end. So thank you very much that you're thinking of something, but I can't react to that as I go. Sorry for that. Example number 2, I have TKT, CAE, and training on listening decoding. Well, training with listening, I just mean some particular training that you did. Training on lexical approach, I don't know, whatever. TKT means that I know modern teaching methodology, sorry. CAE, my language is at advanced C1 level, which is sufficient to teach the context that they need. Well, C1 is usually sufficient for like 99% of all the contexts. CAE is one of the most authoritative tests of English in the world. CAE is issued by the world-renowned authority, Cambridge University. CAE can't be faked or cheated at. So it's something really, really serious and authentic. And this is the most objective assessment of my language skills. So this is it. And any specific training, for example, training in listening decoding. I can help you to understand fast speech of native speakers, and you'll be able to watch films without subtitles or understand your colleagues. Now, these were particular examples of particular qualifications that I know or training that I know personally. If your context is different and you attend different trainings, it doesn't really matter. What you need to do is, before signing up for a course, look at the outcomes section. Now, when I see the landing pages for trainings, usually like training providers, they are good at providing you with outcomes. After this training, you're going to learn this and this and this and that. You need to evaluate these outcomes critically. What are your benefits? What are the possible benefits to your students? May they help to solve a particular problem? And after attending such course, you can go back to the outcomes and rewrite them with your students in mind. How can you help them now with this new knowledge? So what I did just before in the previous 2 slides, I rewrote the outcomes of a particular course or certificate for my potential clients, because I demonstrated the benefits to my potential students with these qualifications. And when you rewrote these outcomes, you can post them to your social networking profile or add to your portfolio, to your CV, whatever. Now, we're moving on to another very, very heated topic, is pricing. Because I promised you the basics of marketing, and we talked about your niche, about possible ways of charging more for your lesson because of your qualifications, if you can deliver the value of that. And here we're going to talk a bit about pricing. So the ABC of pricing. The pricing has two big areas, two big components, is value and the price. The price is how much. Yeah? So you paid around 2,000 rubles for this webinar. This is the price. The value is that what you feel you gained with the money that you paid. And the ideal situation is when the value equals the price or when the value is more than the price. Let me give you a very basic example. Now there were a lot of discounts and all these sales around. And imagine that you buy a dress for 5,000 rubles, a good dress. If you just bought it for 5,000 rubles, it's hard to perceive, well, what was the value of the dress is really 5,000 rubles? Yeah, is that good enough that it may cost 5,000 rubles? But if, for example, you know that this dress before the sale cost 10,000 rubles and you bought it with 50% discount, it means you feel that the value of the price is 10,000 rubles, but you got it for 5,000. Yeah, so you feel that the value is more than the price. This is a basic retail example. We are not in the retail, we are in the area of services. Your lessons and your expertise, they are services. So that's why this like discount things doesn't really apply to us. But it was just an example. What you also need to understand about the value is that is how your clients perceive your service and expertise. It's not about your self-esteem. It's not about what you think of yourself. It's what your clients think about you and your quality of your teaching and quality of your expertise and training. So this is the value. Bear that in mind, please. And as I said, we are in the services. We are not in goods. Yeah. Well, when you buy, I don't know, when you sell dresses, you can only charge that much for a dress, and you can give some discounts. But here, when we are in the services area, we need to think about how to increase the value for the client. And these are 5 ideas of how to increase the value. You may increase your value by increasing your expertise and your by CPD. Yeah? So all the trainings that you attend. Then you need to communicate your expertise to your clients. This is what we talked in the previous 2 sections. You need to be clear about benefits and advantages for them, and you need to deliver this expertise to your clients via social networking, online presence, and so on. Again, there's a huge separate topic about how to promote yourself in social networking sites. I will not touch this because it's too huge of a topic. But you need to increase the expertise, communicate it, and deliver it. Then you may think of increasing the range of services. You don't only sell lessons, but think about what else you can sell. Maybe it's some additional materials, some additional tasks, maybe some speaking clubs, maybe some projects. So think, what else can you give to your students apart from just lessons? Yeah, it's also going to increase the value. I pay not only for the lesson, but for something else. And personalize your services. Show your clients that you understand and address their needs. And these are the ways to increase the value. And finally, the pricing. Yeah, so we increase the value, but what about the actual price? Again, sorry, I will not give you any sums or any numbers or anything, because it's all very different. It's very different from where you're living, from your level of expertise, and so on. I don't know your particular market. Russia is such a country where prices range dramatically from city to city, from region to region. So it's useless to give you any particular figures. What we know from marketing, however, is that there's a pricing range. On the very basic level, we have high pricing, yeah. It's about like well-established, very experienced teachers with a specific niche, maybe Delta qualified. We have medium level, so teachers with some years of experience, TKT CELTA qualified, roughly, yeah. And we have lower range, university students, new recent graduates, low qualified teachers, and so on. So we have these niches everywhere, yeah. So these price ranges everywhere, and the particular price for each of these levels gonna be, well, in your region gonna be different. Maybe 5,000 for 500 rubles for, let's say, St. Petersburg is really low, but for some other region it may be medium or even high. I don't know, I'm not an expert on that. But the thing is that to meet the expectations of the clients, you need to orientate into one of these levels. So, for example, if the average pricing, the medium pricing is 1,000 rubles, let's say, and you assess yourself with this medium level, you need to meet this range. If, again, in your region, 500 is low, 1,000 is medium, and if you charge 750, somewhere in the middle, those people who don't have enough money to pay for the medium, you're going to be too expensive for them. But those people who can pay for medium, they're going to think, why is it so cheap? What's something wrong with it? That's probably, well, no, I would rather take something that is within this level, yeah, 1,000 rubles, let's say. To know exactly the exact figures, I recommend you to go to these websites of freelance teachers, search for your region, and try to compare the prices with the expertise. It doesn't always match, of course. Well, there are all sorts of crazy things there. But if you search meticulously through the price ranges of what sort of teacher with what sort of qualification charges that much, so it can help you to develop an idea of what you can charge for this and that. And well, this is of course for freelancers only, yeah. So when you are the price you manage the price for yourself, yeah. If you work for some institution, it can be harder, of course, but this is the idea, yeah. So you need to meet this particular level. Oh, right, I hope it makes sense. Are you still there? Put some pluses before we move on to the next section. You're not falling asleep, and you're not like racking your brain like, oh my god, what is it? Yeah, we have still quite a lot of things ahead. Now we're going to move on to native and non-native speakers, yeah, how to position yourself. Yeah, this passion for native speakers, it still in some way is persistent among people, among clients, and we again need to be equipped to promote our benefits as non-native speakers to these people and explain why just a native speaker doesn't mean a better teacher. So there are some myths that we need to debunk. Myth number one: students prefer native speakers. You can hear that from, I don't know, directors of studies of some private schools, like, oh, this is because people want a native speaker. Well, the reality is that students prefer good teachers. They want a teacher who's qualified, who's skilled, and who's passionate about their subject, and they're ready to pay for a good, qualified, skilled, and passionate teacher. Whether it's a native or non-native, it doesn't really matter. And I think that we all heard of these native speakers who were just unqualified and they just didn't basically know what to do in the lesson. Yeah? So this is the reality. Myth number two, and I like this myth so much: students will learn better pronunciation from a native speaker. Have you heard that? Put some pluses. Yeah. Have you heard? Yeah. Of course, we all heard. It's it's about pronunciation when they're gonna talk to native speakers. They're gonna learn a better pronunciation. Here is again what I learned from Marek Kiszkowiak. There's a quote from Professor John Levis, who is like one of the best, one of the most authoritative people on pronunciation in the world. Yeah, so I listed all his credentials below. He said, pronunciation is not like a contagious disease. It's not something that you catch from a person you're in contact with. And again, imagine that you have lessons with a real native speaker. Does it mean that you're going to have the same pronunciation as they have? No. Even the common sense said, no, it's not possible. Come on, it's joking. So it's not a contagious disease. You learn your pronunciation when you work on your pronunciation, right? And it doesn't really matter whether it's a native or non-native speaker. Myth number 3, native speakers are more proficient. Now this is because they know language better, right? Again, the reality is a teacher who's at least 2 several levels above their students and prepare for a lesson. Well, if you do prepare for your lesson, and you're proficient enough to cover 99% of your students' needs. Again, look at the students that we have, yeah? So if you're a real B2 or C1 level language user, it will most probably cover 80 to 90% of the marketing demand. Yes, there are people who want to have a C2 level. Well, then you have to have CPE, like straight B or A. But come on, the usual demand for marketing you can cover with C1 level for sure. You can go on to C2 if you want to develop the language, and I think it's a very good thing to do. But you're gonna be confident enough to teach the level if you are 2 several levels above your students. And finally, these are your key strengths as a non-native speaker. This is again what I took from Marek's website. Language awareness. You know language, you know English tenses, you know the structure of the language, you know its peculiarities, you know this mismatch between, I don't know, articles. Yeah, we don't have articles, but you understand how language works. You understand your learners better because you were learner yourself, or you are still learner yourself. And I think that we're all constantly learning, right? So you are in the same shoes. You know what they are going through when you teach them. You are a successful language learner yourself. You're a fantastic role model for your students because you achieved the level that you achieved, and you can show them, like, look, it's possible, it's real. I did that, you can do it as well. And finally, understanding and using your students' L1 in class. This is what I mentioned when I talked about doing CELTA in the same country that you live in. So you can understand, for example, the errors that your students are making because you share the same language, the first language, and it really eases the teaching. So these are your strengths. You need to be aware of them, and you need to promote them as well, because these are your strengths. Native speakers do not possess that, not always possess that. And this all is only if your own language is up to standard, of course. So if you're real B2, C1, a C2 level user, this can be true for you. So you need to take care of the language. And here again, I'm harking back at the beginning of the webinar when I said that language and expertise are like the main cornerstones of your profession. Right, and the last section in this roadmap. Oh, we are 1 hour and 10 minutes already. The second half will be, of course, shorter, so don't worry. I hope you're not too tired yet. Mentoring and peer assessment. The more affordable alternative as CELTA is not an option for you. And I also included this because let's face it, Delta is expensive for Russia. You need to be really motivated, really diligent, and you need to save money for that if you want to do it. I think it's worth it, but still, I can understand perfectly well that you may want to spend your money somewhere else for your family, for yourself, for your children, for whatever. What are the options that are available to you in this situation? You may find a Delta qualified mentor you like and trust. Your online options are unlimited. Why I say Delta qualified? Because again, I believe that people who did Delta, they have this idea of how to give how to give feedback to you in a positive and constructive way. Not all people without Delta can do it. There are people who can do it, but Delta teaches that explicitly. Agree on your individual CPD plan. It can be reading some literature, observing, experimenting, teaching, recording your lessons, observing your lessons, evaluating and improving. It can be probably best an individual plan for your particular needs and requirements. You may agree on the timeline of your action plan. And the work is usually done that you record your lesson and then send them to your mentor. And remember that a good mentor gives you encouraging feedback and shows you how you can experiment and improve. These are really the key, because if you agree to such scheme, if you find someone, a mentor, you need to make this feedback really useful, because you're going to also pay money for that, and you need to learn from the feedback. And this feedback should not be like, oh, it's a terrible lesson, I don't know what to say. It's like, it's not particularly helpful. And so this person should be able to give you feedback. That's the key skill that you need to look for. There are people who do that. I don't recommend anyone specifically. But I think that this Delta qualification is sort of a benchmark. So you may search for that online in Russia, abroad. In Russia, we have quite a lot of people who are qualified to do that. So just look around. If you can't find a mentor, if you can't afford a mentor, that's also again okay. You can find a study buddy. So for example, if you're interested in that, you can search for a study buddy after this webinar. Why not? And you may find a study buddy among your colleagues. You may again agree on a CPD plan together and set a timeline for it. It's always better if you have a particular deadlines for particular things. You may record your lesson and exchange them. But again, you may need to create a set of criteria for peer assessment if you're at loss of some criteria. So you can either develop them yourself by, let's say, watching good examples of good lessons. On YouTube, you can find a lot of them. Or you can, I don't know, take a Celto Delta handbook and look at the criteria and try to figure out some clear criteria for yourself. And again, peer learning is about positive and non-threatening feedback. So you may share your opinion and expertise with each other, but you should be very focused and cautious with criticism. So if you want to criticize some point, you need to suggest how to do it otherwise, or how to do it better in your opinion. And you can discuss it. And there can be lots of interesting things coming up from these discussions. Now, low budget CPD, again, how to make the best of sources that are available to you. And I have a list here of things that you can do. Again, all the links going to be at the end of the presentation. You don't need to search for anything. So go to websites of big publishers. I'm subscribed to all the newsletters of the big publishers. Oxford, Cambridge, Macmillan, Pearson. And they have a lot of good materials, webinars, lesson plans, and so on. Of course, because there's a publisher, they need to advertise their course books. But it's just one small thing of their delivery, and usually they invite some good experts, and they share some useful insights with you. Then we have IATEFL. This is this British Conference and British Community Association of Teachers. They have loads of free webinars, and they stream the conference every year, the conference that is in Britain. They stream some of the talks for absolutely for free. I've never been to IATEFL, but I watch it every year, and I have a feeling as if I was there. British Council has a great website for teachers, and there's going to, again, loads of articles. Some of the articles I share with you in my VK group. Very good materials, and they have a catalog of materials. And One Stop English is a project by Macmillan. They have loads of free materials, and also it's subscription based, so you can find lesson plans there for different topics, different levels, and so on. YouTube channels of renowned teacher trainers and language schools. I recommend, and this is my personal take, Hugh Deller, Scott Thornbury, Michael McCarthy, International House, and some others. There is a very high quality YouTube channels there. Free online courses, you probably know, Future Learn, Coursera, edX. You can take the course for free, and you can only pay if you want to have a certificate. But again, if you need a certificate, you can pay for it. It's not that much. It's like $60-70 or something like that. If you don't need a certificate, you need knowledge. So you just study the course for free, and here you are. You can write down your testimonials that you did this or that course. Then your local teacher community organization looks what around you. Yeah, we have NATE, National Associations of Teachers. We have MELTA, Moscow Association, DONELTA, Rostov Association, and some other active associations. So Google for them and look what they do. So maybe they can also provide you with some free and useful training. Teacher bloggers. Again, there are quite a lot of them. Last but not least, VK groups. Again, we now live in the era where there's quite a lot of useful communities in VK where you can really find a lot of stuff. So the mantra is find the things you need and dedicate some time to search for what you need. The starting point, I'm going to provide you with all the links, and the starting point is here, in fact. Wow, we are reaching the second roadmap, and we're going to talk about language. As I said, it's going to be much shorter than the previous one. The previous one was really huge, but that's what I promised. That's what you asked for. And in language, we're going to cover the following things. I'm going to go through CE, CP, and FC. I'm going to talk about how to prepare for them, how you may tackle self-preparation, how to do it on a low budget, and how to improve your language without investing much money and time every day. So, again, we're going to start from the top. CPE, perfectionist only, also known as a treasure hunt for procrastinators. I'm going to explain now in a moment why I call it treasure hunt for procrastinators. But this is what is CPE about? It's about studying demanding subjects at the highest level. Successful CPE candidates can negotiate and persuade effectively at a senior managerial level, understand the main ideas of a complex piece of writing, talk about complex or sensitive issues, and deal confidently with difficult questions. So these are things that a C2 CPE candidate can do. Now, what is it? It's the highest you can go on the Cambridge scale. It's a C2 level exam, so you can't go any further. Yeah, the SEFRA scale ends there. It's very prestigious for teachers, but of course, if you advertise it properly, remember what we talked about a couple of moments ago. It's essential if you want to go for CELTA, Delta, EMA, and TESOL, some serious qualifications. Even though for CELTA you can take CAE easily. There's no need for CPE in CELTA. It covers most demanding language requirements of any teaching job abroad. So if you have a CPE, this is a benchmark. The positive sides. It's possible to prepare on your own, and I know a couple of good examples. Myself, I prepared on my own for the first time, and it was hard, but it was very, very good. It was very, very rewarding. I couldn't find a proper course at the time, so I did it on my own with books. You learn loads of good language and improve it immensely during the preparation. So, this is a goal, and as we go to this goal, we learn a lot of language. It's a great motivational goal for improving the language. This is what we do. Just don't want just to learn the language. We want to have a CPE, and this is a great, great goal to have. It adds to your reputation and expertise, and this is a valid reason to charge more for your lessons. Again, remember what we talked about, the value. It increases the value of your services. The downsides are it's really hard to prepare on your own. Yes, I did that. It was hard. But you need to be diligent, you need to have grit, you need to be very motivated, and you need to not stop and not procrastinate. And this is why most of the people need a preparation course or consult someone on the exam strategies and the assessment criteria. So this is why people take a course, because a course is structured. You have a tutor, you have your group like classmates, fellow students that you study with, and it helps you to move on. Yeah. And why I call it treasure hunt for procrastinators, because I mean, I've seen so many people who say, I want to take CPE, I want to prepare for CPE. But this is such a great goal, it's so far away, and it's so, it's the highest level you can go. And, people start to fear that and start to procrastinate. And, I know like people who prepared for, I don't know, 5 years for CPE. And when they come to my course, what I often hear, like now is January, my students are gonna take the exam in June. Oh, I feel I'm not ready yet. No, 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 no. I mean, I'm probably gonna take one more course next year with you, and then I'm gonna do it. I said, no, 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 no way, no way, no way. You take it now. You took the course. You need to take the exam now, because it's procrastination. It's perfectionism with procrastination. Much in the same way about CAE, right? Yes, absolutely. I recognize my students, and I really try to encourage them to take the exam this year, because you take the course, you prepare, you invest a lot of money and energy and time into that. So you need to do it now. Yeah, it's better to take the exam, look at your experience, look at your grade, and maybe you want to retake the exam in the future. That's going to be much easier for you to set some more specific goals. For example, you were not that good at writing, so you want to improve your writing. You were not that good at, I don't know, listening. You want to improve your listening, so your goal is going to be more specific. But procrastination is really the curse of all people who prepare for CPE. And the thing is that you will never be really prepared for the exam. Come on, it's the highest level exam. You will never, almost certainly you will never be at the point when you're going to say, now I feel ready for my CP. I think I'm going to take it. Right. CAE, solid evidence of solid knowledge, also known as I'll start my preparation tomorrow. This is another procrastinating thing that I'm gonna start my preparation in January. Oh, no, in February. But I'm gonna prepare for CAC for sure. Okay, what is CAE about? Follow an academic course at a university level. Communicate effectively at a managerial or professional level. Participate with confidence in workplace meetings or academic tutorials or seminars, and express yourself with a high level of fluency. CAE is slightly academic. It has become slightly academic, particularly after the changes in 2015. They want to be on par with IELTS, and they want candidates to take CAE for university studies. That's why they aimed so much for CAE. But for us teachers, it's a valid and authoritative evidence of your language proficiency. And it's essential if you want to advertise yourself as a English language professional. The reasons I mentioned in the section about value, remember. Entry requirements for CELTA. This is if you want to take CELTA, you need a CAE or you need this level. Yeah, you need C1. And it opens doors to work and study abroad. Yeah, so again, if it's part of your dream or ambition, this is why you need this. The good things. Possible to prepare on your own. You learn loads of good language, the same as CPE. It's a great motivational goal. It adds to your reputation and expertise, and it's a reason to charge more for your lessons because you increase the value. The downsides are pretty much the same. It's hard to prepare on your own. Most people need the preparation course, not to procrastinate. There's loads of vocabulary to learn. This is what the main complaint of my students is: too much vocabulary. It's really so, yeah. And it's even though the course may be intensive and long, it's still nearly impossible to like activate all the vocabulary. It's maybe not a valid goal, yeah, but you need to have loads and loads and loads of vocabulary. Yes, Sophie is one of my students, and she's like, oh yeah, vocabulary. Oh yeah, it's your nightmare. And a demanding high-level writing task. Yeah, so again, here a mentor, a tutor is needed, probably. Finally, FCE. I call it a good start or at least something. What a FCE candidate can do? Communicate effectively face-to-face, expressing opinions and presenting arguments. Follow the news. Write clear, detailed English, expressing opinions, explaining the advantages and disadvantages of different points of view. Write letters, reports, stories, and other types of text. So this is a good start for your teacher language development if you don't have any particular Cambridge certificates, or your language, you haven't really taken care of your language for a long time. It's authoritative evidence of your decent level of language. It's mostly sufficient for teaching children, teenagers, adults who study the language for their own purposes. Remember, again, I mentioned that about being 2 separate levels above your students, so it usually covers most demands of clients. Essential if you want to prepare for Yogoga, Cambridge Young Learners CatPet. And again, it's possible to prepare on your own. It's a great re-energizing of your language. For example, if you're after maternity leave, after pauses in your career, if you had a teaching higher degree, if you have a degree in teaching, sorry, and helps you to stand out from the crowd of ordinary teachers. Most people need a preparation course because for FCE candidates, it can be really hard to be back to school after long periods of no learning. Because usually if people start FCE, they had a long break from when they last studied something. And it's, really can be hard into, being back to school again. Some colleagues may look down on FCE holders. I heard this opinion, but I think it's their problem, whether they look down on something or not. So I think that we can easily ignore that. And it's not enough for CELTA or for studying or working abroad. Yeah, so this is a first solid step on your way. And now, how to prepare and how to prepare on your own. First steps in preparation. Go to Cambridge English website. You're going to have the link at the end of this webinar. Download Handbook for Teachers and an exam paper. It's free. And you can look at it, look at the type of the task, try to do the tasks, and see how does it match your level. Yeah, you can take an exam preparation course books. I would warn you that please take the ones that have been updated for 2015 exam specifications. The exam has changed since that time. And when people ask me, like, what sort of course book would you prefer, or would you recommend? Well, they're all slightly different, but they are all up to standard. So if you take any course book of a main publisher, you're going to have some good value for money. Yeah, so they're all fine for preparation. If your level is not yet enough for the exam you prepare, you may not have enough. One course book may not be enough for preparation, so you may take 2 books, for example. It may take a lot of time, but I mean, you have to assess your abilities, your progress, and your level. Then go to Cambridge English YouTube channel. It's just a holy grail. They do so many things about assessment, preparation, assessment scales, writing. It's a lot of very useful things, and they are really clear to follow. Yeah, so they are done for teachers who don't have any specific knowledge of assessment and so on. Yeah, so they talk a lot about exam strategies, assessment criteria, teaching and preparation tips. Serious and solid preparation courses of experienced teachers. I would have here 3 criteria. Who passed the exam themselves. Well, this is just a must. Yeah, and if you're looking for a tutor, like, just ask them, well, can you show me the copy of your certificate? I mean, it's okay to ask because there's so much fake online. The teacher or the tutor have to, I believe they have to have at least 2 years of experience for preparation for choosing exam. Because, why I say 2 years? Because if they just started preparing for the exam, they passed the exam and they started to prepare for themselves. I mean, let's face it, in the first year, you just have the very slightest idea of how it goes. If you pass the exam yourself successfully, it doesn't mean at all that you can teach other people to pass, not even at the same level, but just with the success. Yeah, it's really hard. It takes time and experience to develop a course, to address the needs of students and so on. So that's, I say, at least 2 years of experience. I mean, you can if there is a tutor that you know and they say, okay, well, I mean, I only prepared like for 1 year. I've never prepared for this exam before. I mean, it's okay. All people learn at some point, but it means that the price would be accordingly lower than of somebody who is experienced. And have a verifiable testimonials of successful test takers. This is, again, one of the most important things, because people can write anything about their experience, but if there are at least some people who can say, like, yes, I prepared with this person, it was good, I passed the exam, here are my results. Well, this is at least can help you to sort out all sorts of fake or not enough qualified people. Right. Some of you say, like, I have a friend who, like, passed CPE. I mean, it's possible. I don't say it's impossible. Yes, I also know some people who just, like, passed CPE and that was their first exam. I mean, good for them, but it's really hard, and that's not enough people. Not really a lot of people who did that, and you just don't know the fail rate of CPE, in fact, which is also very high because, again, people tend to overestimate themselves. So it doesn't mean it's impossible. It means it's quite hard. Right. If you decide to do it on your own, so select a course book. I mentioned a couple of ideas. And select some additional materials carefully. Actually, I advertised my CPE plan for you, but yesterday I was thinking, I was reading your questionnaires that you filled in for this webinar, and I thought, okay, well, why not to share the CAE program with you as well? And I decided that, okay, no problem, I'm going to share both CAE program and both CPE program. So these are my programs, and these are my selection of materials. This is what I'm going to share with you. Again, why I share it with you at no additional cost, because you're going to do it on your own and you're going to do it your way. Because when people come to my course, I add a lot of my experience and my expertise to that. Yeah, because if I just give you a selection of course books and a plan, well, it's going to be just a roadmap for you to prepare, right? And you may succeed with that, you may not succeed with that because of, all these procrastination things that we talked about. But I'm just going to give you a start, and you can try it out and see how it works to you. So do your best to stick to the plan, and remind yourself every day why you're doing it. Yeah. So what are your goals? I always say that it's useful to have both, like, internal goals, like I love the language, I want to be better at language and so on, but also to have like external goals, what it's going to give you in terms of your income, the value of your services in all these things. Yeah, so your motivation should be strong, and it should be both internal and external. So think about it carefully and motivate yourself with that. And I also recommend to take exam results predictions seriously, because exams are expensive. And if you have like the exam as a take or an attempt, it's always an attempt. But if you don't know how ready you are really, it can be, well, a bit disappointing, right, to waste this money. So I have a special webinar on exam results prediction. It costs like 650 rubles. It's really, really affordable. I did that for Macmillan a couple of years ago. And there is a plan on how you can tackle exam prediction. Yeah, so how you can understand, with working with past papers, how you can understand that you're ready for the exam. Also, if you teach for YGE, for example, and it's a very high stake exam, so you can also take a look at some ideas on how to predict your results. It's possible to predict. It's all about statistics. Finally, low budget language improvement and ways to improve your language every day. So this is our last section. And so, ways to improve your language every day. So this is what I've been doing for years. And this is how my English has improved from being one of the languages that I know. I know German and I know Swedish at quite advanced levels. I lived in Sweden, and my language, my English, was like an average C1. And in some years, I just worked a lot on that and improved it to a higher C2 level. This is what I did. So the tip number one, I called switch your TV channel. So switch your phone menu, your Facebook feed, your YouTube, your e-reader to English. Not everything at the same time, but take one step at a time. So stop watching things in Russian, watch things in English, even though it may be hard at the beginning. It is hard, but you're gonna soon be used to that. And as your language improves, you're gonna make it your second nature, really. And this is tip number two: never watch films with Russian dubbing. English sound, English subtitles only. If you watch with someone who doesn't speak English, yeah, so people may protest, then allow Russian subs, but try not to read them. Yeah, it's possible. I lived in Sweden and I worked at schools in Sweden, just like ordinary high schools. And Swedish people are well known for their proficiency in English. So it's legendary how Scandinavians are good at English. And many people ask me, what is their secret? What do they do? There's something in their methodology that they do differently. Well, I mean, as having a first-hand experience from that, I know that they don't, in schools, they don't do anything special, anything that will be dramatically different from the things we do. But the thing is that if you switch on Swedish TV, and there's a lot of films or shows going on there in English, and it's not dubbed. They just don't have money for that. They put Swedish subtitles. And as a result, the whole nation is exposed to English from the very early on, and they are so fluent. I mean, this is one of the most serious reasons why they are so fluent. Of course, I can't dream about Russian TV without dubbing. I mean, it's not possible. But come on, you have YouTube. You have your own TV now on YouTube, and you can choose what you watch and the language that you watch. Now, listen to podcasts, YouTube talk shows, lectures every time you cook, tidy your flat, wash, iron, clean, water your flowers. We all do these things. And we can fill this time with something useful. Yeah. And one of one of the best presents I got from my husband, he gave me the headphones, Bluetooth headphones. And every time now I do these things in the flat, I put on the headphones, I switch something like a podcast or a YouTube channel, and I'm listening and doing things. This is how I watch lectures, how I don't know, watch some talk shows, whatever. Yeah. So this is the free time that I have. I don't just sit down in the evening and look at it. And this is how I improve my listening skills immensely. Ways to improve your language every day. 2 more tips. Try and read at least a short article or news item in English every day. This is so simple, but again, it's a habit. I recommend you to subscribe to BBC or on Facebook or Guardian on Facebook, or you can download both BBC and Guardian app to your phone. They're both free. I mean, it's fantastic that such great sources are free. I mean, I thank Guardian every day, really. And just read some news. I don't have any notifications on the phone, but the only notification I have on the phone is Guardian. And like every day, there are some articles that are coming up. I choose categories. For example, if you don't want to read about politics, read about art and culture. If you're into sports, read about sports. And like every day, I get an article, and if I'm interested, I just go and read it. Or I just, when I have a minute, I just open the Guardian app and see what's there. Yeah, and I read a couple of articles. Then one more source you can also join for free. This is my Quizlet class. So my students have closed Quizlet classes for their programs, but this is an open Quizlet class for everyone. And I must admit, I haven't added new sets for quite a long time, but I know if you're going to join it, I'm going to start adding them. I have a lot of good sets, and I'm going to add them more regularly. So this is a barcode. You need to request access. Yeah, so you need to click the button, request access, and after the webinar, I'm going to add you to the class. Yeah, so this is for free. The barcode will be there in the slides. If you don't do that right now, you can do it later. And every time you procrastinate, we all do, try to go to Quizlet and study some of the sets. This is one of the best things you can do for your language. We all fidget with our phones, like, oh, what's there? Yeah, just open Quizlet and study for 10 minutes. If you do that every day, there's going to be an immense improvement for your language. Finally, there are some simple truths I want to conclude with. You never improve your reading, listening, speaking, or writing unless you read, listen, write, or speak on a regular basis, preferably every day. This is a skill, and you need to work on this skill. The more you do a thing, the better you become. This is so obvious, but we tend to forget about it. Your language is your instrument, and the more you play it, the more professional you become. If any one of you been to music school, play an instrument, you know how you change if you don't practice. I just want to give you one example. I'm a fan of a rock band, and on Friday I visited their concert. And before the concert, I watched a video from the guitar player. This guitarist is well known, is worldly known as one of the best guitar players in the world, most proficient guitar player in the world. And in this video, he complained about his fingers. The thing is that they just started the tour, and they play every evening. They play a concert. They play for around 3 hours, which is long, and their music is very complex. So there are a lot of complex things the guitarist should do. And he said that, I had 1 month off, yeah, so they were on a vacation, and his fingers lost the sensitivity. So just imagine the most technical, the most virtuoso guitarist in the world, who said that I haven't played for a couple of weeks and my fingers are getting numb. Well, think about us humans, we need to practice it every day to be at least at the same level we are. Or if we want to improve, we need to practice more. This is like that. There are no magic pills for that. And you're a teacher, and it's your primary responsibility to be good at your subject. You're a teacher. The better you know your subject, the better teacher you are. So my final thing is that nobody's perfect, but you can be better than you were yesterday. I would like to thank you very much for your attention, that you survived these almost 2 hours, that you listened carefully, that you had the patience, and this is my favorite slide. Now I'm ready to listen to your questions. Are there any of them? Okay, I see. Could you advise books to read before going to CELTA? Do I need to take CAE to take CELTA? I mentioned CAE. It's good if you take CAE. As for the books, actually, CELTA does not require anything particular, but if you want to prepare somehow, you may read some basic things like Jim Scrivener's book, Learning Teaching, or Jeremy Harmer's book, How to Teach English. Is CAE enough to cover the absence of English qualification from a university? Well, if you combine CAE with some teaching qualification, then I think it can cover. Okay, now, oh goodness, are there any more questions? Yeah, thank you. I want, sorry. Is CAE enough to teach for IELTS? Is CAE equal to IELTS? Well, if you look at the scale, so CAE corresponds about like IELTS band 8. So, I mean, why not? Yeah, but I think if you really want to specialize in IELTS, you have to take IELTS yourself as well. Yeah, but for a start, it will be nice. I want to prepare for FCE and CAE. Is it essential to... Oh my goodness. Sorry, is essential to do what? I can't find the question anymore. Lots of thanks, really, thank you a lot. Probably someone will copy the question, or probably I have already addressed that. Is it essential to pass CPE, or is CAE grade 1? Oh yeah, I see. Grade 1 enough. Grade A. So if you pass CAE with grade A, they're gonna state in your certificate that you know the language at C2 level. But bear in mind that the C2 level is the biggest level. So if all the other levels have 20 points on Cambridge English scale, CPE has 30 points. So if you pass CAE with grade A, so even though the certificate is going to state C2 level, so if you want to have some evidence to your employer or your clients that you are at C2 level, you can do it. But really, it's going to be a very, very low C2 level. So if you really want to, for example, teach for CAE in the future, you have to be higher than that. Yeah, so CPE grade B gonna do. So it's gonna show you a higher range of C2 level. It's gonna be a more solid C2 level, depending on what you want. If I want to prepare, okay, sorry. It was the same question. If I pass CA on B2 level, would it be valuable for me and my clients? Well, it's better than nothing, right? So you're going to have a B2 certificate, and again, you can advertise yourself as a teacher who has a serious, real B2 level. So you may improve in the future, you may retake CA later, but if you have B2, well, it's better than nothing, right? Okay, yeah, there are some questions in the question section. How much time does the CA preparation usually need if, according to the test, I have C1 level? Well, I don't know which test you've taken, but again, so each level is a big thing. Yeah, so you may be at a lower C1 level, you may be in the middle C1 level, you may be at a higher C1 level. These sort of things you better solve with your future tutor. Yeah, and with you need a closer assessment from an expert. Yeah, because again, if you think that you have a C1 level, you may try to do some past papers. If you see that this is really okay, you may take the exam. If you feel that you're not confident enough, you may consider a course. How to join the Quizlet? Scan the barcode, go to the link and send the request for access. I'm gonna approve your request when I finish the webinar. Answer that. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, so Daria, if you took a general test, there are not so many reliable tests. You know, when I recruit new students, I ask them to do EFSET. EFSET is a nice test, but I know that EFSET has its downsides. So it's not particularly objective. It tends to make the level higher. So I would be a bit critical about a general test. You need to do some of the past papers. All right, so Serafima, my friend passed CELTA in Rostov. Assessment seemed subjective. Tutor, too many A marks. Have you ever heard about the situation? No, I don't think that. Well, I've never heard about like having too many A marks in CELTA. I mean, it's Cambridge system is a criterion referenced testing. It means that if you match the criteria, you get the level that you match. And it doesn't really matter if there are too many people or too few people who do the same. So again, let's say we have a group of very strong CAE students and they all passed the test. And if they all did what is expected for them to do, they can all gain grade A. Well, just because they tick all the boxes, so they performed at this level. And it doesn't really matter that it's not like only 5% of people can receive this or that mark. So I think it's rumors or misunderstanding of the testing system. It doesn't work like that. The test efset.org, this is the one I advertised before recruitment of new students. Right, so I think that this is it. Yeah, so those of you who asked about my FCC CP preparation courses, I recruit students once a year and I do it in August. So if any one of you are interested in taking FCC CP courses with me, so just stay in tune and look for advertising. I'm gonna have a free webinar when I'm gonna talk about all the courses that I have. And you can apply for the course, but it's going to be in August. I don't have any spare places during the year because all the people are in the course and I'm like 100% booked. Okay, I think that this is it. Thank you very, very much for today. It's been fantastic with you. Thank you very much for your attention, for your questions, and for being with me today. Good luck and all the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.